What if the version of you you've always trusted was never real in the first place? What if the one who's been struggling, chasing, fearing and overthinking was just a mental construct, a phantom wearing your face? From the moment you were named, you've been taught to act like someone with goals, flaws, a past to carry and a future to worry about. But what if that someone isn't there? Not in the way you think. In this video, we're going to break open one of the deepest illusions in human consciousness. The belief that there's a separate you inside the body. You'll begin to see how that sense of me is actually a bundle of thoughts, memories, and reactions stuck on repeat. The ego feels personal because it talks like you, remembers like you, but it's just a loop trying to survive. And here's the twist. What you really are doesn't need thoughts to exist. Pure awareness has been here all along, quietly watching the mind play its game. This is what real spiritual awakening reveals, not a better identity, but the collapse of identity itself. This isn't about philosophy, and it's not a thought experiment. It's about realizing right now that you've never been the character you've been trying to fix. You've never needed to improve the mask. You just needed to see that it was a mask. And once that illusion cracks, everything changes. Let's go straight to the root, where the self was never born in the first place. 1. The birth of the phantom self. Long before a man learns to say, "I am," the world says it for him. His name is spoken, expectations are placed, and little by little, a mask starts to form. At first it seems innocent, a label here, a nickname there, but over time those labels begin to harden. You're so smart. You're always quiet. That's just who you are. He doesn't question it because it's all he's ever known, but deep down, a quiet itch begins. Something doesn't feel quite real. It's like playing a role in a movie you never auditioned for. You're praised when you stay in character and corrected when you go off script. Before you even know what your favorite food is, you've already inherited a belief system, a religion, a family legacy, and a survival strategy. This is the phantom self, constructed, not chosen. And yet it walks and talks as if it were you. It reacts, it defends, it performs, but the show never feels fully yours. You can see this phantom self in action when you hesitate to speak your truth, worried it might not be like you. Or when you chase approval, even though it leaves you empty. It's a mental echo running loops from a past you didn't author. Here's a simple practice. Write your full name at the top of a page, then below it, list 5 things others have always said about you. Now ask, is this who I really am, or just what I've been playing all along? What begins to dawn is strange but liberating. The you thought you were might never have truly existed. And once that possibility cracks the surface, something even more radical starts to emerge from behind the curtain of the illusion. 2. The personality program. Most people spend their entire lives trying to improve a personality that wasn't theirs to begin with. You were told what you're good at, what you're bad at, and how you're supposed to behave depending on the situation. Like software running in the background, this personality keeps updating itself based on approval, criticism, and survival. But here's the thing, it's just a program and you're not the program. You're the one watching it run, even if you forgot you could step outside of it. Imagine a man who's always been called the reliable one. He shows up, keeps quiet, doesn't rock the boat. But deep down, maybe he dreams of adventure, of being free to speak his truth without fear of judgment. He doesn't dare act on it, though, because the program warns him that's not who you are. But what if it is? What if who you are is simply awareness, pure awareness, observing the patterns play out without needing to be any of them? A good way to explore this is to notice how you shift depending on who you're with. Around your boss, you might act composed. Around friends, relaxed. Around strangers, cautious. Which one is the real you? None of them. They're roles being played out by the personality program. But if you pay close attention, you'll start to sense something steady underneath. A quiet observer that doesn't change. That's you, not the mask, the presence behind it. Spiritual awakening isn't about perfecting the character, it's about waking up from the illusion of self the character creates. It's seeing that ego death isn't a tragedy, it's freedom. Because once you realize the personality isn't the core of who you are, you stop trying so hard to upgrade it. You stop obsessing over what others think. And that moment, where you watch the program without running it, is the first glimpse of something far more real. 3. The voice isn't you. That voice in your head, it sounds like you, doesn't it? It narrates your entire day, comments on everything, even argues with itself. But here's the shocking part. It's not actually you. It's just mental noise that got loud enough to feel like an identity. The ego lives in that voice. It thrives on the illusion of self by constantly talking, analyzing, worrying. But if you take one step back and just listen to it, something shifts. You realize you're not the voice, you're the awareness hearing it. Let's say you make a mistake at work. The voice kicks in, "I'm such an idiot. They're going to think I'm useless." It feels automatic, even justified. But if you pause and notice, you didn't choose those thoughts. They showed up on their own, like pop-up ads. Now imagine you're watching that same thought without attaching to it. You just observe. No reaction. That's not passivity, that's power. That's the beginning of spiritual awakening. The problem is, we're trained to take the voice seriously. We treat it like a wise narrator, when in truth it's often a loop, repeating old fears, outdated beliefs, and reactive stories. It says things like, "I'm not good enough," or "What if they leave me?" over and over, not because they're true, but because they're familiar. When you start questioning those thoughts, when you stop automatically believing them, that's ego death beginning to bloom in silence. Here's a practice. Throughout your day, catch yourself thinking and mentally say, "That's not me, that's just a thought." Then breathe. Don't judge it, just watch it pass. Over time, you'll start to feel a deep shift. The voice won't disappear, but it'll lose its grip. And that gap between the thought and the watcher, that's where pure awareness lives. And what comes after discovering that? Well, it only gets stranger from here. 4. Memory is not identity. Most people think their memories are who they are. They'll say, "This is just how I've always been," as if the past is etched into their DNA. But memory isn't solid ground. It's more like shifting sand. The way you remember something depends on how you felt at the time, what you were told afterward, and what you believe now. Your identity is often built on faulty recollections, wrapped in emotions and retold so often they feel like facts. But they're not. They're stories, and stories can change. Take someone who believes they're not creative. Why? Because maybe a teacher once criticized their drawing, or a parent laughed at an idea. That memory stuck. It became part of the story. "I'm not creative," and it got repeated so many times, it turned into a personality trait. But if you really dig into it, you'll see that it wasn't the truth. It was just a moment that the mind turned into a label, and that label started running the show. Here's something practical you can do. Write down 3 strong beliefs you have about yourself. Now, trace them back. Where did they begin? Who said it first? Did you choose it, or did it just stick to you? This kind of reflection breaks the illusion of self wide open, because you start to see that you're not a fixed person, you're a fluid experience, and that experience is happening now, not back then. You're not the memory, you're the awareness that remembers. The freedom in this is huge. If memory doesn't define you, then you're not chained to your past. You can drop the weight of old stories, and once that weight begins to fall, something unexpected surfaces. An openness, a space where a deeper truth can finally be seen. And that space? It holds a question most people never think to ask. 5. Who would you be without the story? Every man walks around with a personal documentary playing in his head. It's filled with scenes of victories, regrets, heartbreaks, labels, and roles. I'm a father. I'm the black sheep. I always mess things up. These stories become so deeply ingrained that we mistake them for identity. But here's the twist. What if you pause the movie? Just for a second, who's there when the story stops? That uncomfortable silence? That's not emptiness. That's the doorway. This storyline might have started with real events, but it evolved into a prison. A man gets fired once, and now he's a failure. Someone leaves him, and suddenly he's unlovable. These labels sneak into the subconscious and replay like a bad song on loop. But life isn't meant to be lived in reruns. And the truth is, if the story was taken away, you wouldn't vanish. You'd still be here, watching, breathing, alive. That watcher isn't part of the story. It's the screen the story plays on. You can experiment with this. Next time you feel triggered, stop and ask, what's the story my mind is telling right now? They disrespected me. They don't see my value. Then ask, is that story useful or just familiar? If it's not serving you, drop it. You'll feel a shift, like taking off a heavy coat in the summer. That space, free from the mental drama, is the beginning of ego death. It's where pure awareness quietly waits, behind all the noise. Most men are terrified of letting go of the story because they think they'll lose themselves. But it's not the self that's lost, it's the suffering. And when the curtain starts to pull back, what you begin to sense isn't another story waiting to replace the old one. It's something even more real, but way harder to explain. 6. The self is a sensation. There's a common phrase people use, I don't feel like myself today. But what does that really mean? Most of the time it refers to a subtle sensation, maybe a sense of control, clarity, or emotional balance. But here's the catch. If the self is just a feeling, and feelings come and go, then who's the one noticing their arrival and departure? That observer doesn't feel different. It just is. This is where the illusion of self starts to unravel in the most unexpected way. The sensation of self shifts constantly. You feel confident after a compliment, anxious after a mistake, proud after a win. Each mood brings a new flavor to the me you think you are. But these aren't reliable indicators of identity. They're weather patterns passing through the sky of awareness. You might think you're the sunshine or the storm, but you're actually the sky itself. And the sky doesn't flinch. It holds everything without effort. Here's a quick example. Let's say you're having a good day. You feel on top of the world. Then one comment, one look, and suddenly you feel insecure. Did you really become insecure? Or did a thought trigger a change in your inner weather? Instead of chasing the good version of yourself or fearing the bad one, start noticing the part that stays still, the part that watches without judgment. That's pure awareness. And it's not a feeling. It's a fact you can't put into words. The more you pay attention, the more obvious it becomes. You've been chasing a stable self in a sea of instability. But stability was never meant to be found in emotions or thoughts. It was always just beneath them, waiting to be noticed. And once you get a taste of that stillness, something incredible happens. You start noticing the moments before the chaos even begins. 7. The moment before the mind. There's a split second, so small most never notice it, right before a thought appears. That instant is empty, silent, untouched. It's like standing in a quiet room before someone bursts in with opinions. Most people live their whole lives caught up in what comes after, the thought, the emotion, the reaction. But the moment before, that's the key. That's where the illusion of self hasn't taken the stage yet. And in that silence, there's no drama. Just pure awareness, waiting. Think of it like this. You're watching the ocean. A wave rises. That's a thought. But what was there just before the wave? Stillness. That stillness is always there. but the mind is obsessed with the move. The ego doesn't want you to pause. It wants to keep feeding the loop. But if you train yourself to catch that tiny space before the mental chatter kicks in, you start to realize something profound. You're not the waves, you're the whole damn ocean. Here's a practice. When you meditate, don't chase peace or fight distraction. Just sit and wait for the next thought. Watch what happens before it comes. At first you might miss it, but soon you'll feel the quiet gap between thoughts, like standing on sacred ground. That space is your natural state. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg for attention. It simply is. That's the beginning of spiritual awakening. Not fireworks, just quiet recognition. And the more you rest in that space, the less hypnotized you are by the noise that follows. Because once you feel what exists before the mind, something changes. The illusion of self starts to feel thinner, lighter, like it could vanish at any moment. And what would happen if it did? Well, that question opens a door most never think to walk through. 8. There was never a separate you. Most people grow up believing they're a separate person, living inside their own little bubble, disconnected from the rest of life. That illusion is convincing. It feels like you're here, and the world is out there. But try this. Remove all the labels, all the inner commentary, all the stories you tell about me and them. What's left? Just breath moving in and out, sound, color, sensation. Life is just happening. And the idea of a separate you turns out to be the biggest illusion of all. Imagine standing at the edge of a river. You see the water flowing, leaves drifting, reflections shifting with the light. You don't think the river is separate from the earth, right? It's part of the whole. The same is true for you. You're not an observer watching life. You are life, aware of itself. That shift isn't a metaphor. It's a direct experience. The mind doesn't like it, because it can't control what it doesn't define, but pure awareness doesn't need control. It simply knows. The illusion of self depends on one core idea: separation. I'm here, and everything else is out there. Ideen. But when you stop taking thoughts at face value and start watching what's actually happening, the line between self and other begins to blur. You're not inside your body looking out. You're the whole field of experience. You're not the drop in the ocean. You're the ocean pretending to be a drop for a while, just to see what it feels like. This isn't about abandoning your responsibilities or forgetting your name. It's about realizing those things were never you, just tools to navigate the world. And when that veil starts to lift, you begin to sense something ancient, something that's been quietly waiting behind your everyday self. Not a better version of you. Something far deeper, and the moment it recognizes itself, everything changes. If you want to elevate your vibrations and manifest with more ease, I have prepared something special for you. Click the link in the first pinned comment and join us in the journey of awakening your inner mage.